This story is titled, My Girlfriend Ditched Me to Go Party with Her Single Friends. Instead of taking Mem to the hospital after I got in a car accident. Okay, so I've been sitting here for like an hour trying to figure out how to even start this post. My hands are literally shaking while I type this, but I need to get this off my chest and maybe get some outside perspective, because I honestly don't know what to think anymore. I, 24 male, and Haley, 22 female, have been together for 5 years, since our senior year of high school. Well, I guess I should say we're together now, but I'll get to that part later. Up until last weekend, I seriously thought this girl was the one. Like, I had a ring picked out and everything. I spent 3 months' salary on it. Yeah, I know that's probably stupid, but she always talked about wanting something special. I was planning this whole elaborate proposal for our anniversary next month. The ring was just sitting in my desk drawer now, receipt still in the box. Just to give you guys the full picture, I work as a software developer at this startup downtown. The pay is decent, and I actually really like my team. Haley's in her final year of nursing school, and she's always been super dedicated to her studies. That's one of the things that attracted me to her in the first place. She's got goals and ambitions, you know? We've been living together in this pretty nice apartment for about 2 years now. It's nothing fancy, but it's in a good area and we could walk to most places we needed to go. I pay most of the rent since I'm working full-time, and she's still in school, but she contributes what she can from her part-time job at Starbucks. We've never really had any major fights about money or anything like that. Our relationship was pretty much perfect. At least I thought it was. We did everything together. Grocery shopping, weekend brunches, movie nights, all that couple stuff. Our friend groups kind of merged over the years, although she still has her single friends from nursing school. Haley's a single, ready-to-mingle friends were always a bit of a red flag, but I ignored it because I trusted her. These weren't just your average single girls who liked a night out. They were the type who made being single their whole personality. You know the kind. The ones who post those hot girl summer captions year-round and genuinely believe if he wanted to, he would, is the answer to every relationship issue. But I actually never had any problem with her hanging out with them, even though they could get pretty wild sometimes. Haley always said she was just there to make sure everyone got home safe, and I believed her. I guess I should mention that I'm not really the partying type. I mean, I'll go to a bar or whatever for special occasions, but clubs and that whole scene? Not my thing. Haley knew this from the start, and it was never an issue. She'd go out with her friends maybe once a month, and I'd have my gaming nights or catch up on work. It was a good balance, you know? The thing is, looking back now, there were probably some red flags I ignored, like how she'd get really defensive about her phone sometimes, or how she'd take forever to respond to my text when she was out with her friends. But I always told myself I was just being paranoid. I didn't want to be that controlling boyfriend who gets jealous every time his girlfriend goes out. Plus, Haley's done nothing but support me through everything. She was there when I got laid off from my first dev job during COVID. She helped me study for technical interviews. She even learned basic programming, so she could understand what I was talking about when I had a rough day at work. We had already talked about marriage and our future together. We both wanted kids eventually, but not until she finished school and got established in her career. We had this whole 5-year plan mapped out. Get married, both focus on our careers for a few years, buy a house, then start thinking about a family. Her parents loved me. My parents loved her. Our siblings got along great. Man, it's crazy how fast everything can fall apart. Everything started when Haley had plans to go out with her nursing school friends to celebrate her friend Jessica's birthday. They had rented out this VIP section at Club Azure. It's this fancy new place that just opened up like 2 blocks from our apartment. Maybe a 5-minute walk, tops. I wasn't invited, which was fine by me. I had to work late anyway because we had this big deployment scheduled. Little did I know that would be the start of the worst night of my life. So yeah, like I was saying, last Saturday started out pretty normal. I had this big deployment at work. You know how tech companies always do their deployments on weekends when there's less traffic? Well, I was part of the team handling this one. Usually I walk to work since it's only like 20 minutes, but since I knew I'd be there late, I took my car. Haley was getting ready for Jessica's birthday thing while I was getting ready for work. She'd bought this new outfit specially for the night. This sparkly black dress thing that probably cost more than our grocery budget for the month, but whatever. She was excited about it. And I didn't want to be that guy who complains about his girlfriend spending her own money. Before I left for work, she was doing her makeup in the bathroom, taking forever as usual LOL, and talking about how Jessica had apparently invited a few people from their clinical rotations to join them at the club. I remember getting this weird feeling in my stomach when she said that, but I pushed it down. I didn't want to start an argument before leaving for work, and honestly, I was trying really hard not to be the jealous boyfriend type. Just be safe, okay? I told her before heading out. She rolled her eyes and was like, yes, Dad, in that joking way she always does. That was around 2 p.m. Little did I know that would be the last normal moment between us. The workday was pretty standard for a deployment. Lots of coffee, lots of staring at screens, lots of, did you try turning it off and on again moments. Haley texted me around 7 p.m., saying she was starting to get ready to go out. She sent me a mirror selfie in her new dress asking how she looked. I told her she looked amazing, she did, and to have fun with her friends. Around 9 p.m., she sent me another text. Heading out now. Don't wait up. I replied with a thumbs up emoji and went back to work. At around 10:30 p.m., Haley posted some stories on Instagram, her and her nursing friends, doing shots in their VIP section, videos of them dancing, the usual club stuff. But I noticed something in one of the videos that made my stomach drop. There were definitely way more guys there than I expected. Like, a lot more. The VIP section looked packed. I almost texted her then to ask what was up with that, but I was busy with work stuff. I told myself I was just being paranoid and tried to focus on fixing this stupid bug in our payment processor. Finally, around 11 p.m., we got everything working. I packed up my laptop and headed down to the parking garage. I remember sitting in my car for a minute, debating whether I should text Haley and see what she was up to. The club was literally on my way home. I could have stopped by if she wanted me to join them. But then I was like, nah, let her have her fun with her friends. I'll just go home, maybe play some Elden Ring, and crash. The parking garage was pretty empty since it was Saturday night. Just my car and a few others from the deployment team. I pulled out of my spot and headed for the exit. The garage has this weird sharp turn right before you get to the street, and you have to kind of inch forward to see if any cars are coming. I did what I always do, crept forward slowly, checking both ways. The light was green for me. I started to pull out onto 5th Street. Everything was normal. Then out of nowhere, this black SUV comes flying through the red light. I mean flying. Had to be doing at least 60 in a 35 zone. I barely had time to register what was happening before. Bam! They T-boned me right on the driver's side. The airbags went off. Those things hit way harder than you'd expect, and my car spun around like a top. The impact spun me out, slamming my head against the window. My ribs felt like someone had taken a crowbar to them, and I could already taste blood in my mouth. When it finally stopped, I was facing the wrong direction, and my driver's side door was crushed in. The SUV that hit me, they just kept going. Hit and run. Classy. I sat there for a minute, trying to process what just happened. My head was pounding where it had hit the window, and my ribs felt like someone had taken a baseball bat to them. So there I was, slumped in my completely wrecked Civic, blood dripping down my face from a nasty gash on my forehead. My vision was swimming, my head pounding so hard I could barely think straight. Every breath sent a sharp, stabbing pain through my ribs, and I had this awful metallic taste in my mouth, probably from biting my tongue during the crash. The airbag had gone off. I reached up to touch my head, and when I pulled them away, my fingers were sticky and red. I knew I was screwed up bad, but the whole time, my brain kept going back to one thing. Haley is a nurse. The person who literally spends her life helping injured people would drop everything and come running. She'd see the blood, hear my voice, and flip into emergency mode. I pulled out my phone, barely able to focus on the screen because my vision kept doubling. The club was 5 freaking minutes away. She could be here before the cops even showed up. I called her. Straight to voicemail. Okay. It's loud in clubs. I get it. I tried again. Rings twice. Voicemail. She declined it. She actually declined my call. But I was still clinging to the last shred of hope. Maybe she was in the bathroom. Maybe she'd call back in a second. So I forced my fingers to type out a message, even though every movement made my ribs scream. Baby, I got in a car accident. I'm bleeding. I need you to come get me. I'm at 5th and Main. I stared at the screen, watching as those 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. I exhaled in relief, expecting her to say she was on her way. Instead, her response popped up. Lamau, nice try. I blinked. My brain wasn't processing. Did she think I was joking? I could feel the blood trickling down my temple, and she thought I was messing with her? I tried calling again. Declined instantly. Panic started creeping in, not just from the wreck, but from the sick realization that Haley wasn't coming. I twisted around, which by the way felt like someone was shoving a knife between my ribs, and took a shaky pic of my wrecked car through the cracked windshield. Sent it with the caption, "Not joking. Please come help." A few seconds later, she replied, "Photoshop is getting better." I just stared. Meanwhile, Mike, The homeless guy who hangs out near the parking garage, cool dude, I buy him coffee sometimes, was already calling 911. This man, a complete stranger, saw me bleeding and broken in my car and immediately did the right thing. My own girlfriend, a nurse, the person I trusted more than anyone, was sitting 5 minutes away and treating it like some kind of joke. At this point, my whole body felt wrong. I was getting this awful hot and cold sensation that made me think maybe I was more screwed up than I realized. My chest felt like it was getting tighter. Something was seriously wrong. I texted her again, my fingers barely able to hit the right keys. Haley, please, I'm serious. I need to go to the hospital. I'm dizzy. I can't breathe right. Her response? Stop trying to ruin my night. I'm blocking you if you keep this up. I actually felt my stomach drop, not from the pain, but from the realization that she didn't care. I tried calling one last time. It rang once, then straight to voicemail. She actually blocked me. She blocked my number while I was sitting in my wrecked car, bleeding, possibly concussed, struggling to breathe. She didn't even care enough to check if I was alive. By the time the cops showed up, shockingly fast for once, I was barely staying conscious. One of the cops took one look at me and immediately called over EMS. I tried to tell her I was fine. Next thing I knew, Mike catching me before I could completely faceplant. Sir, you need medical attention, the officer said, crouching down beside me. You're going to the hospital. I still didn't want to believe this was real. Haley had to realize by now that I wasn't lying. She had to unblock me and show up, right? While waiting for the ambulance, I grabbed my phone again. My notifications were empty. No missed calls, no texts, nothing. But then a new Instagram story popped up. It was Jessica's story. It was a video. Haley doing body shots off some random dude's abs. Timestamp? 11:47 p.m., right around the time I was getting loaded into the ambulance. And somehow, that hurt more than the crash. I stared at the screen as the EMTs lifted me onto a stretcher, my whole body screaming in pain. I could see Club Azure's neon blue sign from where I was lying, 5 minutes from where Haley was partying like nothing happened. The last thing I remember before the ambulance doors closed was thinking about the engagement ring in my desk drawer at home, the one that cost more than her student loans. Man, shock and blood loss really make you rethink your life choices. The ambulance ride was weird, man. Like, you know those dreams where everything feels kind of fuzzy and distant? It was like that, except every bump in the road felt like getting punched in the ribs. The EMT riding with me in the back kept trying to keep me talking, probably to make sure I didn't pass out or something. I remember him asking if there was anyone they should call, and I just started laughing, like actual painful, probably sounds crazy laughing. Because what was I gonna say? Yeah, my girlfriend's right down the street doing body shots with some random dude, but she blocked my number because she thinks I'm lying about being in an accident. So I just said no and blamed the weird laughter on the concussion. We got to the ER around midnight. They wheeled me straight into this little room with like 3 other patients. The guy next to me kept throwing up. Great for my own nausea, let me tell you. The nurse who checked me in asked all the usual questions. When she got to emergency contacts, I realized Haley was still listed as mine. Had to explain that she wasn't available, which got me this look that was like half pity, half, what kind of garbage person isn't available for an emergency contact? Around 1 a.m., this doctor comes in, takes one look at my x-rays and is like, yep, you've got 3 broken ribs on your left side, and we're concerned about that head injury. They did a CT scan to check for brain bleeding. Also needed 7 stitches above my eye where my glasses basically embedded themselves in my face. The whole time they're poking and prodding at me, my phone is just sitting there on this little table next to the bed. Dead silent. Haley was still blocking me on everything. I kept thinking about how she was probably still at the club, still partying, still doing whatever with whoever, while I'm lying here getting stitched up. You know what's really messed up? One of the nurses mentioned that they usually give pain meds through an IV, but they had to wait because they needed to know if I'd been drinking. And I remember thinking, well, at least Haley can't say I was drunk and making this up. How pathetic is that? I'm lying there with broken ribs, worried about proving to my girlfriend that I wasn't lying. Around 2 a.m., they moved me to a real room for overnight observation. That's when things got interesting. See, I had my laptop bag with me from work, so I managed to log into Instagram on my laptop. You know, since Haley has blocked my phone number. And there they were. All the stories from the night. Haley dancing with different guys. Haley doing more shots. All time stamped after I'd tried to reach her. After she knew I was supposedly in an accident. After she'd blocked me. But here's the kicker. At 2:47 a.m., Haley posted one final story. Her and her friends leaving the club. Caption, best night ever! I screenshotted everything. Don't know why, really. Guess I wanted proof that I wasn't crazy, that this actually happened. Around 3 a.m., my phone suddenly exploded with notifications. Haley has unblocked me. Probably got home, saw I wasn't there, maybe noticed the vomit in the bathroom from when they were checking my concussion at the scene. The messages started rolling in. Where are you? Why aren't you answering? Hello? Your car isn't here? OMG, are you actually in the hospital? Which hospital? Please answer me. Baby, please, I'm so sorry, I thought you were joking. Please tell me you're okay. I'm calling every hospital in the city. 67 messages in total. I counted them later. 67 messages after she realized something was actually wrong. But you know what? All I could think about was that Instagram caption. I texted her back one thing. Met Sinai. Room 412. But don't bother rushing. Wouldn't want to ruin your best night ever. Then I turned off my phone, took one of the pain pills the nurse had left, and tried to sleep. But every time I closed my eyes. The pain meds must have kicked in eventually, though, because next thing I knew, everything went black. I woke up around 8 a.m. to the sound of someone crying. Took me a minute to remember where I was. Everything's too white and smells like industrial cleaner. My ribs felt like they were on fire, and my head was doing this weird pounding thing that made the fluorescent lights feel like laser beams to my eyes. And there was Haley, curled up in this uncomfortable-looking plastic chair next to my bed, still wearing that sparkly black dress from the club. Her makeup was all smeared, mascara running down her face like some kind of sad raccoon. She'd kicked off her heels at some point, and I noticed one of them had a broken strap, probably from all that dancing. The moment she saw I was awake, she practically launched herself at me. Would have hugged me too if this nurse hadn't walked in right then and stopped her. Careful, honey. He's got broken ribs, the nurse said, giving Haley this look that could have frozen hell over. I guess the night shift had filled the morning staff in on my situation, because every nurse who came in that morning looked at Haley like she was something they'd scraped off their shoe. Haley started with the waterworks again. Baby, I'm so sorry. I thought you were just trying to get me to come home. You know how you sometimes get worried when I go out, and I was drinking, and Jessica said I shouldn't let you control me, and I cut her off right there. Control you? When have I ever tried to control you? She kind of shrunk back into her chair. Well, you know, you always get kind of weird when I go out with the girls. Weird? You mean like not wanting my girlfriend to do body shots with random guys? Her face went white. Guess she didn't realize I'd seen those Instagram stories. That was nothing. Just birthday fun. She started doing this thing with her hands that she always does when she's nervous, picking at her nail polish. Actually, she looked pretty rough overall. Guess that's what happens when you party until 3 a.m. and then spend the rest of the night crying in a hospital room. You don't understand, she said, voice all quiet now. I really thought you were just making it up. You know, trying to check up on me or get me to come home early. I lost it at that point. And let me tell you, yelling with broken ribs? Not fun. Making it up? Haley, I sent you a picture of my wrecked car. I told you I needed to go to the hospital. What kind of person blocks their boyfriend during an emergency? I thought it was photoshopped, she practically wailed. And you know how you get sometimes when I'm out with my friends. How I get? Please enlighten me. How do I get? Because from where I'm lying, in a hospital bed, by the way, I've never once tried to stop you from going out. Never complained about you spending time with your friends. Hell, I even encouraged you to go last night. The one time I actually needed you, literally 5 minutes away, you blocked me and kept partying. A doctor came in then, probably because of all the yelling. He checked my vitals and gave me some more pain meds, all while shooting these disapproving looks at Haley. She just sat there sniffling the whole time. After he left, we sat in silence for a while. My ribs were throbbing, my head was pounding, and I just felt empty. You know that moment when you look at someone you love and suddenly realize you don't recognize them anymore? Yeah, that. Finally, Haley spoke up again. The guys at the club, they didn't mean anything. I was just having fun. I would never cheat on you. And that's when it hit me. She still didn't get it. She thought this was about the guys at the club, about jealousy, about her having fun with her friends. I told her, I don't care about the guys at the club. I don't care about the body shots. I don't even care that you were out partying. What I care about is that when I was literally injured and asking for help, you chose to block me. You chose to assume I was lying. You chose to keep partying instead of taking a 5-minute walk to check on me. But I didn't know. Exactly. You didn't know. Your boyfriend of 5 years tells you he's hurt and needs help. And instead of taking 5 minutes to check, you blocked me. Do you even understand what could have happened? The doctor said if I'd waited much longer to get treatment, I couldn't finish that sentence. The reality of how bad it could have been was still sinking in. Haley started crying again. Seriously, how was she not dehydrated at this point? I'll make it up to you, I promise. I'll delete Instagram, I'll stop going to clubs, I'll do anything. I just laid there, staring at the ceiling. You know what's funny? I said, not feeling funny at all. I've got a ring in my desk drawer at home. Was gonna propose next month on our anniversary. She stopped crying instantly. Just went completely still, like someone had hit her pause button. Had this whole thing planned out. Dinner at that Italian place where we had our first date, was gonna get down on one knee by the fountain. I looked at her then, really looked at her. Smeared makeup, tangled hair, that expensive dress all wrinkled from sleeping in the hospital chair. 5 years of memories, 5 years of love, 5 years of trust, all gone in one night. I think, I said slowly, you should go home and get some sleep. I'll call you later. She immediately started having a mental breakdown and asked if I was breaking up with her. I told her I wasn't sure I needed time to see if I still trusted her after all of this. She started to protest, but the nurse came back in, definitely had been listening outside the door, and said visiting hours were over, which was a lie since it was like 9 a.m., but I could have hugged her for it, if, my ribs weren't broken. Haley gathered up her stuff hovering by the door, like she wanted to say something else. But what was left to say? As she was leaving, she turned back one last time. I really am sorry. I love you. Yeah, the same sentence after ruining everything. I closed my eyes, pretending to be drowsy from the pain meds. The last thing I heard was the click of her broken heel on the hospital floor as she walked away. They kept me in the hospital for 2 more days. Haley kept trying to visit. She'd show up at the start of every visiting hour, looking progressively more disheveled each time. The nurses would ask if I wanted to see her. I said no every time. Just couldn't deal with it, Plus, laughing hurt my ribs, and her excuses were getting pretty laughable. My mom drove down from Pittsburgh when she heard what happened. She's the kind who shows up with Tupperware full of homemade soup and starts reorganizing your hospital room because it's not optimized for healing energy or whatever. But honestly, I was glad she came. When I told her what Haley did, she got this look on her face I'd never seen before. Mom's always been Team Haley. They used to do Sunday brunches together and everything. But when I showed her the timestamps of Haley's messages versus the Instagram stories, she just got real quiet and started stress cleaning my hospital room even harder. Sometimes, she said, while aggressively reorganizing my water cups, the trash takes itself out. Coming from my mom, who usually tells me to see the good in people and work through your problems with love, that was basically her saying, dump her ass. The worst part of those days wasn't the pain, though that sucked, or the terrible hospital food. Seriously, how do they make Jell-O taste sad? It was the constant stream of messages from Haley. She'd clearly gone into full damage control mode. I talked to my therapist about what happened. I've deleted Instagram and blocked all those guys. I'm not going out with Jessica anymore. Please just let me explain. I can't eat. I can't sleep. After about the 50th message, I finally replied, good to know you can actually respond to texts when someone needs you. The police caught the hit-and-run driver, by the way. Turns out it was some rich kid in daddy's SUV drunk off his ass. His lawyer's already trying to settle out of court. Whatever. That's a whole other Reddit post. Getting discharged was a whole thing. They made me sit in a wheelchair. Hospital policy, apparently. Even though my legs worked fine. Mom drove me home, fussing the whole way about how my apartment wasn't set up for proper healing and how I should come stay with her. But I needed to be in my own space. Walking into the apartment was weird. Haley had clearly been there while I was in the hospital. The place was spotlessly clean. No sign of the vomit from the night of the accident. She'd filled the fridge with my favorite foods, stacked up some books and games next to the couch, even got one of those old person grabber things so I wouldn't have to bend over. But she'd also left little notes everywhere. Yellow post-its with hearts and apologies and inside jokes from our relationship. I took them all down. Each little yellow square felt like a knife twist. 5 years of memories. And now all I could think about was her dancing while I was getting loaded into an ambulance. Her blocking my number while I was bleeding. Her best night ever while I was getting stitches. How could you trust someone who treats you like that in a marriage? I knew I was done with anything that has to do with her. After about a week of avoiding Haley's calls and messages, which, BTW, my phone says she tried calling 147 times, I was starting to think maybe she'd finally gotten the hint. But no. Instead, she decided to take it to the next level and start camping outside our apartment building like some kind of sparkly stalker. She literally sat in her car in the parking lot for hours. This went on for 3 days straight. Then at like 2 a.m. last night, I woke up to someone pounding on my door like they're trying to break it down. Please, I know you're in there. We need to talk. I'm not leaving until you open the door. I tried to ignore it, but then, I'll stay here all night. I don't care if the neighbors call the cops. I dragged myself out of bed and opened the door before she could wake up the entire building. Bad idea. She practically fell into my apartment, hair a mess, mascara running, still wearing one of my old coding boot camp hoodies she'd stolen years ago. She smelled like a weird mix of coffee and tequila, and looked like she hadn't slept in days. You look like shit, I said, because apparently that's what comes out of my mouth at 2 a.m. I feel like shit, she laughed. But it wasn't a happy laugh. I've been sleeping in my car. I can't go home. I can't eat. I can't sleep. I just need you to listen. Pretty sure the whole building is listening right now, I said, closing the door. Haley tried to step toward me but stumbled a bit. Great. She was drunk. Can I sit? She asked, hovering by the couch like she wasn't sure if she was allowed. This was the girl who used to barge in and flop across my lap while I was gaming. Now she was acting like a stranger in what used to be our home. I nodded, then immediately regretted it because head movements still made me dizzy. Then she broke down. I know I messed up. I know saying sorry isn't enough, but you have to understand. I really thought that I was lying. I cut her off. That I'd make up a car accident just to ruin your night? No. Well, yes, but it's complicated. Jessica said, Jessica? I laughed, which hurt my ribs. The same Jessica who invited all those guys to the club? The one who told you not to let me control you? Haley flinched. She was wrong about that. You've never tried to control me. I know that now. I've stopped hanging out with her. I blocked her number, deleted her on everything. So what you're saying is, you chose to listen to your single friends about our relationship instead of talking to me? Your boyfriend of 5 years? She wiped her eyes with the sleeve of my hoodie. I know it sounds stupid now. Everything sounds stupid now. But they kept saying things and I started doubting. And then that night, when you texted, I finished for her. You chose to think I was lying, manipulating, trying to control you. After 5 years together, that's what you thought of me. No, you know what the worst part is? I cut her off again. It's not the broken ribs. It's that when I really needed you, when I was actually scared and hurt and asking for help, you chose everything and everyone else over me. I ruined everything, she choked out. I let people fill my head with bullshit, and I didn't even stop to think about the person who's always been there for me. I don't deserve to ask for anything from you, but I swear, I will be better. I'll prove it to you. Just tell me how, please. She looked at me like I was the only person in the world who could fix her, but for the first time, I wasn't sure if I wanted to. I exhaled slowly. My body was still recovering, but somehow, it hurt less than everything else. Haley, I don't even know if I can trust you anymore. She winced, nodding like she expected that. I know, I get it, and I don't blame you. But please don't shut me out. Let me prove to you that I can be better. I looked at her, completely broken, completely vulnerable, completely mine for 5 years. I couldn't do it. I ran a hand down my face, feeling exhaustion settle deep in my bones. One chance, Haley, I said finally. Not because I forgive you yet, not because everything's fine, but because 5 years means something. If you want to fix this, you're going to have to fight for it. Her eyes widened, like she hadn't even expected me to say yes. I will, she whispered. I swear to you, I will. I barely had time to react before she threw herself at me, arms wrapping around my shoulders like she was afraid I'd disappear if she let go. She was shaking as she buried her face in my chest. And yeah, that's how it went. I still don't have that trust in her, but her owning up to her mistake shows that she knows she messed up and is remorseful. Edit 1. Since a lot of people are asking, yes, I'm still keeping the ring receipt handy. Trust takes time to rebuild, and I'm not rushing into anything. Also, for those concerned about my ribs, doctor says they're healing well, but laughing at all your comments still hurts like hell. Edit 2. To address some common questions, comments. The guy who hit my car is dealing with criminal charges, so that's something. Jessica, the friend, apparently showed up at our building too, but security turned her away. Yes, I'm in therapy. No, we haven't started couples counseling yet. Final update, to the guy who asked if I kept the hoodie, yes, she's still wearing it. Guess some things don't change. But if she messes up again, at least I know what to burn first. Shrug.